rather than someone who just lives paycheck to paycheck and rents.
Do you think
all you have to do as a politician is say, I'll give you money?
Silly. This is such a silly position. Do you really think that just because somebody owns land, they have a bigger stake in whether the country is going to succeed or not?
So here's the deal, chat. Should Nancy Pelosi be allowed to vote where veterans can't? Actually, I'm okay with veterans being allowed to vote because at least they gave something to the country. They at least, did something. But no, I think you should be a stockholder in one way or the other.
What do you think of the idea that veterans, if somebody comes to the United States and they serve in the military, they can then become a U.S. citizen?
Automatic citizenship.
Yeah, like service. We can call it the service guarantee citizenship program.
So I helped several Turks join the U.S. military for their citizenship. That program already exists. Like literally, you could be one of the easiest ways to become a U.S. citizen is serve. I think it's a four-year minimum term in the U.S. military, and you become a citizen.
What do you think of the idea that only veterans can truly know the sacrifices for the freedoms they have? So maybe voting should be more restricted, maybe not around land ownership, but around service to the country.
No, see, I reject that because not everyone can serve. First of all, second of all,
you can serve in different ways.
Well, so maybe. Like Peace Corps is considered service to your country. Civil service is considered service to your country. I don't equate all those with military service, although I think Peace Corps is a very, very good thing that exists. I think those who work in civil service, they are underpaid for the jobs that they do because usually on the outside they get paid way more. Mm-hmm. But yes, not everyone can afford land. Not everyone can afford stock. I don't care. Not everyone should be allowed to vote because if you're not a stockholder in one way or another, why should you have a say?
Oh, dude, I mean, I kind of ignored you when you said this earlier. I think that's one of your silliest opinions. This is something that was fought against 250 years ago.
We don't allow renters. But we don't allow renters to determine the policies for the land.
The problem I have with
this,
the problem.
Once the populace realizes all they have to do is that they could be bribed into voting for them, democracy dies.
The problem is if we only let landowners vote, and I can't. We've retracted 300 years into the past here on what should be policy and what shouldn't. I think the charterists in the early 1830s were fighting for the idea that all men, including non-landowners, should be able to vote. So this is really old policy is that this centralizes power around the landowners, decentralizes political power around the rich, and therefore the powerful and the rich are just going to vote in their own interests, and then the interests of the poor and downtrodden who want to be able to have more economic mobility, which is one of the things that America is famed for, and one of the things that should make America great, is then lessened by the fact that the rich and powerful are going to do everything they can to enshrine their positions of power, which is what happened when it was only that landowners or the ultra rich and powerful could vote. They used their voting interest to vote in favor of enshrining their own power. It's part of the reason why slavery existed for so long.
But you'd kind of like this because I would also advocate to not allow inheritance of land.
I don't know if I like that, actually. I think I might disagree with that. Yeah, I really like.
Are you advocating for generational wealth?
Well, I like that TV show. What's that called? What's that TV show? It's in Montana. They're all cowboys. Yeehaw! Your people love this shit.
I don't watch TV, man.
You don't know about the you don't no TV?
I don't watch TV.
Oh, somebody's gonna tell me what it is in chat. Somebody's gonna scream it. No, it's not Snowshoe. What's it called? What's that show? It's off of a famous preserve. Yellowstone. Yeah, Yellowstone. I like that TV show. And and if we disallowed inheritance, then that show would not exist. So.
Well, it's the reason why I think
I have no problem. I don't have any problem with family farms. Am I really gonna go challenge the family farm for passing down the farm from generation to generation? I don't know if I agree with that. I think you can tax inheritance because you didn't earn it, and you're contributing to the society that helped you be able to protect that property. Inheritance. I think I'm fine with inheritance to some degree. Yeah, I mean, I think about all
some degree or period.
Well, I think there should be taxation on inheritance. I think it's an amazing revenue source, and I do think when you inherit something, there's a society that you need to contribute to that helped create the environment where you should inherit it in the first place. The police force help to keep the law and order so nobody comes and steals your fucking farm. The firefighters come and they put out your fire on your farm if something like that was to happen, and you need to contribute to that. I think as a society, we need to contribute to our collective welfare, and that's one of the ways you do it, is I think through inheritance tax. And plus, most people don't care too much about inheritance tax unless you call it a death tax, and then they get really angry about it, which was a marketing strategy the Tea Party used a while ago.
Mm-hmm. So,
but like, think about all the family businesses that would like immediately like boom, they're gone. Then they auction off the property, then they sell it to some bigger company. I don't like that idea. Just completely banning inheritance. That seems silly.
Well, I'm not fully against banning inheritance, but if land is going to be a proponent of voting, I think that there should be equality of opportunity to purchase that, and I don't believe that large corporations be able to buy up the bulk of them either.
Oh well, yeah. Well, I don't think people, only landowners should be able to vote. I think that's very. Again, I just think that's silly. I mean, think about all the people. I think if you're not a
stockholder in the country,
You're a stockholder in the country, even if you don't own land. I don't own land, but I make more of an income than a lot of Americans still, just due to the fact that I'm a streamer, in my different revenue streams that I've devised. But I never had a need to own land because, like, what if I've only rented apartments and stuff like that because I never needed a lot of land. And so now, even though I'm producing for the economy, I'm getting taxed. I'm now going to have taxation without representation just because I don't own a fucking farm. It seems so silly.
I'm okay with doing away with income tax.
So you would,
I think
so.
Wait. I would rather go back to a straight land tax like what we used to have, and only have like tariffs and shit.
It sounds like you want to bring us to caveman days.
I want to shrink government. How do you do it? You starve it.
I don't think that didn't we have like a lot of problems with this when it comes to for example, the lack of federalization. Actually, this is my most basic question I need to ask you. What would stop the rich and powerful from using their votes to then enshrine power around themselves, and stopping other people from moving up the social ladder, or the poor from looking out for their own interests? What would stop that?
Who says they don't? If you actually,
but this is going to make it harder. If the poor can't vote, it's going to be harder. If the poor can't vote, it's going to be even harder for them to secure their own interests. This was like the main principle of Chartism in the United Kingdom from like 250 years ago.
Their own interest anyway. The poor doesn't vote in their own interest anyway. They vote for whoever will bribe them more. That's
not true. When the poor got the ability to vote, their living standards tend to go up. That happened in the UK, that happened in the United States, that happens in most countries, because then they can vote for policies and candidates who can run off of a platform of benefiting them.
Drink the water in. How many areas can you not drink water in?
So your statement is, because America isn't perfect, poor people being able to vote didn't improve anything.
Because of systematic, uninformed voting and poor policies has led to third world cities developing in one of the most quote unquote advanced countries in the world. Flint, Michigan still can't drink your water.
There was
Jackson, Mississippi. I mean, for Christ's sakes. What's silly about it? You've got idiots voting in people who do the same shit for 50, 60 years, and now those areas are destroyed because of it.
When all of the smart, rich landloaders were the only ones that could vote, we had a higher rate of poverty, we had a higher rate of child mortality, we had slavery, we had discrimination based upon gender at a much higher rate. We had a million different issues that allowing poor people to vote in helped ease in different ways, ease the standard of living for these people, make it higher. Like the idea that, America started to go bad because we let the poor people vote. If anything, allowing poor people to vote has improved America in many different ways.
It has nothing to do with poor. It's uninformed voters.
And your way to tell if somebody's informed or not is if they own land. That's silly.
The people who are actually going to be more informed are those who actually have a stake in the country, is all I'm saying.
So you think that just because somebody owns a farm, they're going to know the right environmental regulations to be placed upon nuclear reactors?
No, but they're going to be a little bit more interested in how the area is governed, rather than someone who just lives paycheck to paycheck and rents
Do you think
all you have to do as a politician is say, I'll give you more money?
Silly. This is such a silly position. Do you really think that just because somebody owns land, they have a bigger stake in whether the country is going to succeed or not? People can have tons and tons of assets and other things, and could also have a big stake in their family not starving to death. In fact, if somebody's living paycheck to paycheck, they in a lot of ways would have a much bigger stake if the economy was to go under, because if the economy goes under, they have nothing to fall back upon. They have nothing to sell, and now their family's starving. They definitely have a stake in the nation's survival.
I disagree, because they don't actually
die
think about
if the country doesn't survive. What do you mean?
They don't think about the economic implications of the poor policies that are being pushed.
In the countries in the world that only have landowners and the ultra rich that can have influence over politics and power in politics, are those countries more equal or less equal when it comes to income disparities? Do those countries have higher rates of poverty or lower rates of poverty? I can tell you right now,
I don't even know of any country that runs like that anymore.
Saudi Arabia.
I don't know of any country that runs like that. Saudi Arabia runs like that.
Saudi Arabia runs where the ultra rich and ultra powerful, the people who have big finance,
voting there.
Are the ones. No, they don't have direct voting, but they're the only ones with power. No. They control everything in politics there.
Yes, they have a kingdom there. It's quite different, my man.
Yeah, you're talking about a kingdom for the ultra rich, a kingdom for the landowners. So you're not talking about a democracy. That's not what you're talking about right now.
Actually, no, that's still a democracy.
Yeah, a democracy for the wealthy, not a democracy for the poor.
I'm not wealthy and I'm a landowner.
Okay, so it's a democracy for landowners, but everybody else get bent. Any renters get fucked.
Look, I'll even gladly say you could also earn the right to vote by service through country.
Yeah.
Now, what that looks like, we can actually talk about.
Okay,
I have no problem with and things like that.
So landowners and Starship Troopers, that's our society.
Hey, service guaranteed citizenship. Sure. Let's go.
That's so silly. Can you point to any country in the world that runs like that right now and is successful?
The U.S. used to run that way.
Yeah, and what would you say the general standard of living was for people at that time? Do you think it was a higher standard of living or lower standard of living right now?
Standards of living at the time with the technology that was available, the U.S. was one of the higher amongst the world. However, technologies has changed, everything else, so they're not comparable.
So you're saying that the system hasn't improved, it's just the technology. So you think the system was best when it was like that?
I think the system has degraded severely over the past couple of decades.
Okay, well, I think the system has improved more than it has gotten worse.
I don't know, man.
I think black people not being allowed to be owned anymore, I think that was an improvement. I think women and the poor.
Yeah, it's over 100 years ago.
That's actually not that long ago when you think of the history of this country. It's not a very old country. If you compare it,
it's not a very old country at all. It's not.
Well, anyway, there's women being able to participate in the vote. There's the fact that
and I have no problem with women voting.
Okay, they just need to be landowning. They just need to be landowning women. Renting women they don't have a stock in the country.
There was actually women who could vote before the 19th was passed because they owned land.
I think
you do realize that, right?
I think this just comes from. I'm trying to figure out where this position comes from. You're a landowner, and I think you just, I don't know. Is this just a way to look down on renters? Like, they don't know what they're talking about. They're all fucking retarded.
No, I just realized that you can actually, one of the easiest ways to get elected is you bribe the electorate. It's very simple.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to go away when it's just landowners? You don't think there's going to be people who's going to be like, actually, we're going to make it so land is not what's taxed, sales is what's taxed. Because if it's a society built around landowners, they're going to make it society pleases and represents landowners and only landowners.
So what I stated was the only people that would pay taxes, the only way tax would be collected is through land ownership and tariffs.
Yeah, they're going to get rid of that immediately.
Would essentially be a sales tax.
They're going to get rid of it. If the society is built around land ownership,
then the government wouldn't exist.
What do you mean? They would move it to other taxes. They do everything they can. If the society is only letting one class of people vote, then that society is going to be built around serving the interests of that community and that community alone. Everybody needs to be at the table.
So what started income tax, Dylan? Why does income tax exist?
Why does income tax exist? I believe it was I think it was the New Deal. I think it was around the New Deal.
It was a temporary measure to pay for the debts incurred by World War I.
Okay.
Just like the FBI was a temporary measure to fight racketeering and stuff like that. There is no such thing as a temporary government program. Look, we ran off of straight tariffs and land taxes for over 100 years. And because of World War I and the investment that we had to do in order to participate in that war, we had to pay back our debts. And so a temporary progressive tax system was passed to pay off our debts. I'm just saying, hey, look, we could go back to that. And instead of taxing everybody the way we do now, which I think is ridiculous, I think the idea of the progressive tax plan was a good idea to help get the government out of debt, but then they just kept doing it and incurred more and more debt, which is ultimately going to land to the downfall of this country. Right now, we already see that the dollar is falling. It's dropping in value because the petrodollar is almost null now because Saudi Arabia is accepting yuan and everything else.
Dude, this is okay.
On the
I just looked this
international
up.
stage.
This makes dude. Okay, so you're saying America was best between the years 1776 and 1828.
I am not saying it was
because
best.
because by 1828 the majority of states allowed non-property owning males to vote. That's when, that's how early on we started to say this is really stupid and we're not serving the interests of everybody in our community. So you're literally saying we should bring back America to 1810 when it comes to how we run these elections.
No, I think that we have allowed non-stockholders to curry too much favor.
But your definition of stock ownership is, oh, you have a stock in the country if you own land, as if that's the only way you can have interest if the country succeeds or not. As I've already described to you,
I mentioned things like service.
Do you not think poor people have an interest in having their children not starve because of hyperinflation? Of course they do. That's a stock in the country.
So, how are poor people going to stop hyperinflation? When all their politicians that they vote for just bribe them
all of them. So West Virginia votes for the bribe politicians. Who is that?
Well, any politician will sit there and tell them that they're going to do everything they can for the coal miners and everything else, and then they don't do shit for them. I mean, let's be honest. It's time to hold politicians accountable for the promises they make and actually hold them to their word. But all I am stating is we could actually do away with the tax system. We would have to exceptionally shrink the government in order to do it, but we could do it through land taxes and frickin' tariffs. That's all we have to do, man. Then income tax goes away, period. Poor people don't have to worry about paying those income taxes anymore, which I know a lot of people who could use that couple of $100 that gets pulled out of their check every pay period instead of waiting till the end of the year to
and all they have to sacrifice for it is government roads and firefighters, the police force.
That is bullshit.
Obamacare,
what
Social Security.
What pays for police forces? What pays for police forces?
Taxes.
What taxes?
What specific taxes?
City. It's land taxes to pay for those, by the way.
It's land taxes to pay for those. Okay, so what are all the things? Okay, let's look up right now. What does the federal
government do?
Let's look it up. Wait 1 second.
Your local taxes are your land taxes. Poor people do not pay for police or fire.
Wait, wouldn't this also mean if we're going to be taking away poor people's who don't own lands right to vote, we're going to be taking away their ability to vote in elections? What does this mean for, things like union protections or stuff like that have been passed? All those things would be rolled back, right?
Would they?
I mean, so do you think that the landowning class in America would generally be pro or anti-union, the people who own land?
There's people of all kinds of persuasion that owns land.
Yeah, but don't you think that when we talk about union work,
I was a union worker for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
and I own land. I see no problem with unions.
I think, do you not realize how much this is going to like bend society in favor of a specific class of people? And by the way, if we look at America between 1776 and 1828, right, that time period, this is when the majority of states, restricted voting to landowners. That was not the most prosperous time in America's history. That was not the time when our democracy worked the best. I mean, we actually had rebellions during that. We had a farmers' rebellion in the early years because the system wasn't even working that well.
I think we had a whiskey rebellion at that time, around that time too. But the most prosperous, no. What made America the most prosperous was the Industrial Revolution, and that didn't happen until later.
Okay, somebody just brought up a great point in chat. Some poor people own land. If you're wealthy, it's a lot more likely that you're going to own land. It's a lot more likely that you're going to have the assets necessary for you to be able to vote in your voting system. And so it turns a system that should allow the empowerment of all the people who have a stake in the success of our country, including the poor, to have an impact on how that country is run. That's undercut from the majority of poor people, but reinforced for the ultra rich. And what are the ultra rich going to do when given a position to reinforce their own position and get wealthier? They're going to do it. And then what are the poor left with? How do they empower themselves? Just bootstraps? Like what's the method?
I mean, right now it's just accepting bribes from politicians and getting nothing.
You call bribes, but Social Security, the majority of Americans like Social Security. It's something that they think is a good program. They're in favor of it. Majority of Americans are also in favor of continuing to expand a lot of these social services, like when it comes to health insurance and other issues. I don't think that you can call those bribes, but most countries in the world that have developed to the highest standard of living in the world do these things you called bribes, and they are the most successful and happiest country on the planet. What are the countries that don't take care of their poor that we could point to in that way? And it's like, that's a very successful country. I would like to be like that.
Who said that we would not take care of the poor?
That the government does not take care of the poor. That the government does not come.
The government doesn't take care of the poor now as it stands, and you know it.
Yeah, exactly. We should increase it. We should increase those government programs.
Social Security is not going to exist for you, my guy.
You don't know that.
No, it is insolvent.
You don't know this. You do not know that Social Security is going to go away in a year, 5 years.
Social Security.
You don't. Okay, then why don't we? 5 years. Why don't we raise the tax cap? It is insolvent
right now.
We should raise the tax cap.
It is insolvent right now.
Raise the tax cap.
Oh, okay.
Raise the tax cap. Make it no longer insolvent. Maybe
if fucking Congress would keep their hands off of it like it was supposed to, maybe it wouldn't be so damn bad. But no, they take money out of Social Security all the time.
Keep the government out of my Social Security.
They got crooks out of it. But no, you could still have social welfare programs and things like that. All that can exist.
You think the landowning class are going to just be like, I'll give the poor this?
It's not giving the poor that. If it's for everybody, if everyone qualifies for that, there's no big deal. They benefit from it as well.
Do you think food stamps are for Bill Gates?
I don't think food stamps exist anymore because they don't. It's EBT now. But no, Bill Gates does not have it.
So difficult.
But do you know? But how many people do you know that are rich that don't give charitable contributions and everything else?
You think that charity is going to make up all of the?
I think before the welfare system existed, charity was what existed, and yes, it.
Do you want to see? Do you want to see? Can I show you that
sucks now?
Poverty for the elderly was cut in half by the introduction of Social Security.
Yes, that was actually a great thing. No, Social Security was a great idea. It really was. It worked, but because the Congress refuses to not dip into it, since they're constantly fucking robbing people of their own money that they were promised would be held for them, because that's what Social Security is supposed to be, but they keep fucking robbing the people, it is now insolvent. I have no problem with Social Security existing. I think you're mistaken there. You're thinking I'm for something that I'm not. But right now, the way it exists, no, it will not be here for you. It probably won't be here for me.
I think it'll be here. I think Social Security is like a political golden cow, and whatever party is the one that stops from either the income for it being raised so they keep solvency, or raising the tax cap, or whatever would be necessary to protect Social Security. Whatever political party doesn't do that is going to face such heavy political repercussions that I think that they're not going to be willing to do it. Because even in the Republican,
but what if they're both that way though? Because that's really what's happening.
No, I do not believe that the majority of the people in Congress want to see Social Security go belly up. I do not believe.
No, I don't think they want it to go belly up.
I don't think the majority of the people in Congress would
care. I don't think they really care either.
I don't agree with that.
You don't.
I don't. There's a reason why you could even see it when Joe Biden was at doing the speech during the State of the Union, when he insinuated that there were Republicans that wanted to get rid of Social Security. By the way, 100% true that there are elected Republicans that want to get rid of Social Security. Senator Mike Lee, who got very upset at the time, immediately an audio clip was released afterwards of him saying, while talking to supporters, yes, we should get rid of Social Security. I am bold enough to say that, and I'll take the attacks. But then when it's politically convenient, oh, I would never cut Social Security. I have no clue what you're talking about, right? And there was such anger from the Republican side. Marjorie Taylor Greene gets up. She's like, ah! She's screaming. She's going out. She's angry that they would even insinuate that a Republican would go after Social Security. And then Joe Biden says, okay, it's good to know that every single person in here supports Social Security. It is a golden cow. Even if they want to get rid of it, even coming out and saying that they're against it is fucking toxic. It's toxic for themselves.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene is the same thing that AOC is for the Democrats. It
was not just Marjorie Taylor Greene that got angry at Joe Biden. It was basically, I think it was the majority of the Republican House.
Yeah, because if they feel like they're being lied about, yeah,
but it was true. It was true though.
You mentioned Mike Lee.
Yeah, Mike Lee. You think Mike Lee's the only elected Republican that wants to get rid of Social Security?
I don't even know. I don't know most of the Republican stances on it, because all I care about is my politicians I usually vote for in Oklahoma's District 5. I vote for that representative, so I care about that. Of Oklahoma's senators, I care about them. I don't keep track of every Republican
What's their
politician.
position on Social Security?
Their stated positions is that it needs to be made solvent, and they want to have it for future generations. Now, their policy prescriptions, they don't really put out. They just put out generic fucking statements like that. But yeah.
See, I see that political will and knowing the backlash that would come with it, and that makes me feel somewhat confident in the fact that I do think Social Security is going to be around by the time that I would want to collect it. I do, unless a different system replaces it that's better or more effective, which I will never. I do my best to never assume that the system that I have right now is the best ever. Some people have the feeling if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think human beings should constantly be improving themselves.
If you can improve something, make it better. But the problem is the way it's running right now, it's not solving. It will not.
Okay. We have been going.
It won't be here for me. Yeah, we're at 3.5 hours over that. Yeah, no, I enjoy talking to you, Dylan. I always do.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. I know. Nah, man, I'd give you some content. Fuck it. But no, good times. Stay safe over there, dude. When you go out and y'all are doing the things you do, they taught you about minimal safety distances and stuff like that.
They taught me what I need to know. You duck. If you get shot at, don't get hit.
Yeah. That's just be deliberate in your actions, man. I don't want you to get harmed. Seriously.
I won't get harmed. If I die in the next year or two, it's going to be from the brain tumor I developed watching the 2024 election. Okay, I don't think it'll be from Ukraine.
Fuck yeah, cancer, man. It's dude. Politics in America has been cancer for a while. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, well, it could always be worse. That's something I've learned while I was here. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Yeah, just be safe, man. Take care, and I hope you and all your friends over there remain safe. That's about the best I can hope for. And I hope what is it? Russia puts down their arms and fucking just retreats. That's the best outcome.
I appreciate that. Maybe another day we can talk about isolationism, or as you would call it, non-interventionism, and we can get in more detail about why you don't support aid to Ukraine. But We've already been going for 3.5 hours, so I got to see you later. Okay.
I would actually love to talk about that with you one day, man.
Yeah, because I believe we're not doing enough. That's my take.
Well, I mean, that's cool. I always throw the little jab out of like, hey, if you think that, cool, well, go live it. You know, and you're actually going over there and you're reporting what's going on.